Share
All
the
right.
screen.
3, 2, 1. Hey everyone, Harry here. Today I have Lauren with me, and today we're going to be talking about how Lauren made $15,700 in sales in the last 3 months, a little less than 3 months. And so Lauren, why don't you just introduce yourself, share a little bit about your art practice and what you do.
My name's Lauren 𝐂𝐥𝐢𝐞𝐳. I live in Northern Ontario in Canada. It's the largest freshwater lake in the world on 𝐂𝐥𝐢𝐞𝐳, so it's very remote in some level. But I moved here from Toronto, Ontario, which is pretty much the biggest city in Canada. I grew up there. But I needed to take a huge break and really focus on my practice, and a lot of it has to do with abstraction and landscape and marginalized places. So I did that in the city, but I brought it here.
Amazing. That's awesome. And so how long have you been living near 𝐂𝐥𝐢𝐞𝐳?
It's about 4.5 years. It's just, February was 4 years.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And what sort of stuff do you typically paint? You said landscapes and abstractions. Can you talk a little bit more about your art? I guess that's some of your art behind you, right?
This is like a fairly large piece that's a full abstraction. It's what they call like non-objective abstractive art. So it means there's no object in it that you can necessarily recognize. Whereas like other work I do is near abstraction, so you can tell it's like a landscape. There's something in there. It's recognizable. So I kind of float between those two worlds because I find that the emotional content in the place or space that I'm working with is really important, and to not make it like picture perfect is really actually a goal of mine.
Yeah. No, I actually really I haven't seen any of these pieces you're showing right now, but the one behind you, the big one, to me it looks almost like a creek with a lot of like downed trees or something like that in it.
That's what it is actually.
Yeah. So it's almost like on a rainy day, and it's like the abstraction makes it feel like everything's wet and kind of rainy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it was a weird February warm day, and Toronto was unusual. It was about 12 degrees. So I went down to this swampy area on Lake Ontario and started to paint up in the woods there. And then I went down for a long swamp walk.
Oh,
and
cool.
this was like my imagination after I came back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, did you guys have, do people, I guess, so I'm from the South here in the US, and like hunting is a thing down South. Do they hunt much? Are there like duck ponds and things in Canada much? Because it looks like a duck pond to me too.
Well, from where I grew up, no, their hunting was nothing in Toronto. But here on the island, I mean, they closed the shots down. It's deer hunting, moose hunting, and I think there's like birds and like people fish a lot too. It's really wild. Yeah,
that's so cool. Well, I love it, and I could see that being a fun place to walk by and figure out. So, say a little bit more about like what do you think makes your landscape and your abstract landscapes like really unique? What do you think's unique about your style?
Oh, it's a hard question, but I do think that I can tell you what other people have said about it, but I would suggest that it's kind of like a direct response to place. So instead of trying to make it look like a place, like I can make perfect lakes and trees and do all that, and I am doing that a bit more, but it's really more of like how am I responding to that place, and through different palettes, like this kind of color scheme. Like you look behind me, I mean, you pulled out a swamp, but I mean it's red, right? So
other people might see other things.
They do. Like there's in the top, I don't know if you can really see it, but like you can see at the top here, it's a stormtrooper. You can see this big knife.
I actually see it now, but I didn't see it before.
I don't see that anymore now. I'm just like, it's a stormtrooper. So yeah, I mean, these things happen.
It's like, I'm sure there's some Star Wars planet. You could say it's a stormtrooper on some swamp planet.
So, swamp planet, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just like that. Like, what is there in front of me? What can I respond to with color and action? You know, it's an action thing as well.
Hmm.
So, like, sometimes I come across being people can consider it sloppy on some level, but once you start to really have a good handle on paint, at least I don't want to like toot my horn very much because I'm sure I'll have trouble after I get out here and get on my guests. I'll be like, oh my god, what did you say? You know, I use a lot of palette knives, so they're big
Uh-huh.
swashes, and you just work through that action and hope that you're conveying sort of the energy of what's happening out in that world.
Yeah, that resonates with me. I just feel like there's a lot of like movement and like energy, like you said, in your work, and it just feels really intriguing. It kind of sucks you in, you know.
Yeah, like the other one over here, like you can see that there's like a farmhouse thing beside there's like a ukulele kind of hanging in there, but you can see like a little farmhouse. If you really look at it, it's like all drippy and stuff, and you can't really tell it's there. So I'm trying to like get these ideas that like they're like housing or buildings are part of the landscape as well.
Cool.
So there's this interaction between human activity and sort of the natural world, how that
Very cool.
works.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. So, tell me a bit about this? Like, what sort of people typically, resonate with your work and end up buying it? What sort of collectors do you typically work with?
Um, that's a good question. I feel like they've been kind of all over the place since I've started. So like you get people that are just really intrigued. Like I have people say that like people have a nostalgia thing with me too. That go, oh, that reminds me of this place that I know. I get that all the time, and it's never anything like the place that I was painting
That
in
you
the
were
first.
envisioning?
No, and I love that. So like so there's this sort of like, oh, like you said, it reminds you of these of the duck ponds in Georgia, right? Is that where you
Yep.
are?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, like South Georgia. Hmm.
yeah. And I'm like, I've never been to Georgia. I'd like to go. Been to other parts of the states, but not there. And so it's just people like that. And then there's other people that are really interested in sort of the ideas that I have around marginalized economies. So like, houses that are in nature that may not be like the most beautiful place on earth, but there's something really intriguing about the life that the other people that live, including myself somewhat. I have done a lot of sort of backcountry living in many ways. And I want to bring that to the mainstream, you see, because we don't, Canada is such a huge place, and there's so many sort of ridiculously funny kind of backwoods things. Like I did some work where like this guy used electrical tape or duct tape to put a sign on the side of his building to book
Hmm.
his cabins.
Hmm.
So that was paintings I did for bookings, and it's just obviously duct tape. Like it's just jokes, right? But it looks fun and interesting. So, and it's nothing to like put down or look. People can call it kitschy or whatever, but it's not meant to be. It's meant to be like a sort of taste of a certain kind of reality, right?
Yeah, it's like a showcase or a celebration of these kind of backwoods Canadian lifestyles.
Yes, you should break that up.
You can write that down after the interview. You can use that.
It's little ways of putting things. It's amazing.
Well, let's do this. Let's go back to the beginning. Like, talk to me about like the month or two before we were working together. What was going on in your art practice? What were you doing? What were you trying to tackle before we got started together?
That's just such a great question because I noticed this with you and your other interviews, like how we kind of dial it back a few months and think, okay, well, what were we thinking? So like in February, I'm just looking at this little chart I made. In February, I decided for the first time to do an online gallery show because there's many platforms now that call themselves galleries, and they do 1 week shows, and you pay. I think I paid $100, and that was it. I'm not paying any more for that because these things end up being very costly, and you don't want to lose any money on them. I've been very careful about money in the past, so I did it, and I think I did about 7 or 8 new pieces in the winter, and then we got it all together. I put it up, and I sold one piece, and I think it was $1,200. And I realized after that, there's something up here. Like they seem like they have these deep, relationships with their people, their buyers and all that stuff. And no offense to these guys, because they, maybe someday they'll see this, but I wasn't convinced. I thought that it wasn't enough for me. I should have been out, like when I have my gallery shows, there, at least 5 or 6 pieces, but that's like one chunk in one.
You made like one sale of the 8, and it was like, okay, that's great, it's a win. You made a return, but it was like, no, like it's not sustainable. It's not something you can like keep doing predictably or something like that.
Exactly. So, and then I think there was something else that happened where I think I sold 2 other pieces on my own. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that was during this period of time. Like I do it, but they were fairly close back to back in February and March. And I was like, all right, there's definitely something about me and the way I connect to other people. And I was trying to decide, am I going to change my website to a store and all this stuff? And as I was doing all this like internet stuff, I came across your YouTube ad.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was so good. I'm not convinced very easily. You're interviewing someone yesterday. I was watching Bryce Tubbs, and he was like saying he was so nervous.
Yeah.
And I was the same. Like when I decided to sort of connect with you.
Well, hey, let's talk about that some. But before we get into that and like the how we got connected, like, weren't you also like putting on some events, or like there's something you did, right, where people came and visited you? At
my house?
Not at your house. It was like you had to drive somewhere. There was some sort of like event that you put on with people, and they were coming to some lesson where you were teaching them stuff. Is that?
Oh well, I don't know. I mean, I do these kind of workshops. Like here. Yeah, we call them.
Weren't you doing some workshops also at that time?
Well, I've been planning them. So they're supposed to be there's one in August and one in September, but they have to get planned very early on. And that was another aspect of the things that I was doing. And I still am. One of them had to get canceled because we can't get the people out right now. People are still worried. Yeah.
I see. So yeah, we've been talking about that. And so the workshops haven't happened yet, but that's just something you've been working on on the side as a part of another project you're doing. So you've got the workshops, and that's, the workshops, you could share a little bit about them. And it's kind of like, it's not, the main thing isn't for you to sell art. It's just another thing that you do, right? To help people.
Yes. They're usually 3 days long, and they're in a specific place. So people can have all kinds of levels of art background. So they sign up and they know who I am, and they come for 3 days, and it's a very focused learning curve about how I just basically tell them what I do, and we go out. Yeah, I teach. But I've only just started doing that in the last couple of years, because I realized that I just teach naturally. I don't do it. I don't have like an agenda. I can kind of read what people want. Like I want to paint like a horse perfectly. I'm like, I can't do it myself, but I can help them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I do have that skill. It's not something I want to do all the time though.
Yeah, it's kind of it's something to like, but when you think about doing this, again, your main agenda isn't like, oh, this is my way to make sales for my art practice, but you're maybe hoping that maybe somebody might be interested, maybe not. Well, through this course I'm doing, I'm with you, I'm learning that I can make those segues. I'm going to be less fearful. Yep. Because I noticed in the last couple of years doing my workshops that people can be very competitive, right? They're like, look at mine. Isn't this like, like, do you want to buy it? I'm like, and I don't want to be critical, or, I want to encourage everyone. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And so the other thing that also you spend some time doing is like, don't you do like, you help out other people in your local community with, farm work and stuff like that? Do you mind speaking a little bit about that, if you don't mind? No, that's like sort of probably where I came to learning how to paint the landscapes, because I was a tree planter as a young person in Northern Ontario and British Columbia. So, and then I started working in organic farms. So, that was I studied environmental science in university, but I kind of ditched it because I kind of knew I was
creative person, and I didn't want to work in large corporations and all that kind of stuff. So I started working on organic farms. And up here, once I got here, I reconnected with people, and they just hire me when they need like a switch hitter or whatever they call it.
Extra set of hands, right? Like I guess if there's like a busy like crop that they have to pull up, or like weeding or something like that.
Totally. Next week I'm going to go for 4 days, and there's probably going to be a bunch of weeding and stuff like that. So I said, yeah.
Do you get ideas for artwork from those projects and things?
Totally. That's how I started. Because like when I was tree planting, we were in the woods for like 3 months, right? Painting, and in the wilderness. And then I never painted when I was in like my late teens, early 20s. I had a lot of other stuff going on. I played music and all that, but there's no time for that anyway. Like it's backbreaking work. So, but it wasn't until later. Like I was a little bit of a late bloomer in terms of the way I decided to go into art. I had an uncle that was a problem in the family. So I was like, I'm never doing this, but I just couldn't help myself because I just kept wanting to
back to it.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I do all those little things I've had to supplement my income. Let's put it that way. That's the thing.
So in the past, like before we were working together, you've been doing these other things also as a way to supplement your income and just kind of put it all together, make ends meet, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. That's how it worked. Like work between workshops, between sales of my, but I knew that if I focused on one, like on the thing that I wanted to do, which was my painting, then I could, and learn the right skills, then I could make a living at it. I knew I could, because I had at certain times, like where it's like a boom and bust kind of economy in my life, you know?
It kind of came in waves. It was never quite as steady, but you knew because you had these boom periods, you're like, I know I can do this. I just need to figure out how to get more of these booms.
And like repeatable. Yeah. And kept them. And so just doing gallery shows, which is what the way it was in the city. Like you get a one solo show in a year. That was the big deal. With a gallery.
Yeah, you used to do gallery shows when you were in Toronto. Were you doing gallery shows before COVID in Northern Ontario as well, or like was that something you had kind of stepped away from?
No, I did gallery shows. I did a solo show here on the island when I first came up. She only does like 3 a year because she's got about 50 artists in the gallery, and so I was one of the chosen people to do it, which was good. And I did it, and then
she'll do 3 shows a year across and she picks 3 artists out of 50 to do shows, and that's it.
Yeah, that's it. And I kind of like that was the other part of this puzzle with you was that she wanted to just solely represent me. Okay, this is what happens, and she calls herself my agent, which is lovely, and it was a lovely thing. But I shied away because I knew that if it was just she'd have to be selling my work all year round. And she goes on holiday in the winter, like it just. I had to take the bull by the horns. It was there were the other 2 other people that do it, but they have a different kind of life than me. I mean,
yeah. So let's recap. So like you were trying to figure out this online stuff. You're like playing with the online galleries. You are doing these workshops or other artists to teach them how to paint. You were doing farm work and things like that, and you doing galleries. And so like, what were sort of your frustrations like doing all this stuff? Like what was it feeling like emotionally at that time? It's
rough. I was telling a friend today that I have to learn how to switch gears all the time. Or actually it was maybe someone, I was having conversations about it, just how to switch gears. Like I got to go to the farm. Now I got to go home and paint. Now I've got to do I have to do this full, I did a huge show here on the island. It was almost wasn't like a retrospective, but it was a really comprehensive show that I wanted to have done in museums. So because I think that I was getting to that level where it would be acceptable, but COVID hit and everybody shut down. And also the nature of my work was just a little bit too controversial for a very middle of the road conservative museum stuff. So I just kind of backed off and decided, look, time to make some money for me. Enough already. Focus. Get I'll do 2 farm gigs in the summer now. That's it.
Cool.
Like, no.
Yeah.
I love
so go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I love these guys so much, but it's just even within a week when I'm trying to focus and get everything done, if I don't keep myself in a pretty strict schedule, I get thrown off really easily. So, and I don't want to be like that anymore, because it really does open creative space.
Absolutely. No, that resonates with me too. So let's talk about this some. So you mentioned you found us on YouTube, and like kind of what piqued your interest? You said you liked the ad.
I don't even know what I was looking for. I mean, I don't know. I think I might have been looking for music or something. I don't know exactly, because it was very unusual. Like I've seen a lot of YouTube ads in the last, I'd say year, because I've been watching a lot more YouTube than I had because of the isolation factor and everything. So, but I came across it, and you started to talk the way you do, just
what
naturally.
Piqued your interest? Yeah.
Oh, I think what piqued my interest was just the way that it was the tone of your voice, I think, really, to be honest with you, because it sounded really genuine. And I was like, oh, this is so genuine. Oh, and because that's what we want. Like you want someone to help you if you're asking for it. You don't want to be led astray. And this is a really tricky business, I think, personally, because you're trying to read people, but you don't want to push them far. There's all these like communication skills that I definitely don't have. Yeah. And I noticed that you do. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. That's very kind. Yeah, that's awesome. So I know so you've made about 15,000, 16,000 in sales, which is like pretty incredible. Like, I know there's probably a ton of stuff we've been working on, but like, why don't you just think about like, what are like 2 or 3 highlights of things that you've learned, or little anecdotes you can share about some of these wins that you've been having so far?
Mm-hmm. I think that one of the biggest things for me is a sense of calmness and sort of that mental chatter around a little bit of pricing, and also just a little bit around just having a conversation. That was, I think, the biggest thing, is that once I realized that I didn't have to kick the wheels of my paintings and, put a little sale, kind of here's
for
Lori
sale sticker on them.
That's not who I am. That's not my game. I don't do that. It just is. But I know people want to connect with me, and sometimes I block them. Like, I won't even let them. So I'm like learning how to let them in and enjoy the things that because it is an investment. Like, it's a huge investment, and I really respect that when someone makes an investment like that in their life, for their own life, and how they live with that forever, and maybe pass it down to their children or whatever, pass it aside or whatever they so choose. And that to me is, it's a beautiful connection when that happens. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, it's about investment, like what you're talking about. I think I knew it in this, very small bits, but the way your course is designed, it's very intuitive as well as very, what's the word? Like, like practical. It's both.
Yeah.
It's practical and intuitive. The intuitive part is what I know about people, but then when it's the practical side, is that you're actually corroborating what we often think, as artists, like, oh, that guy probably really likes this and really wants to purchase this, but now what do I do? Like, that's kind of where I've been at, and now I'm learning. Those are the skills I'm learning. The nuances of conversation, and
Can you talk a little about, you've made some of these sales, like you've made some sales for $2,700 through Messenger. Can you talk a little bit about some of that and how you've done that?
Well, I have to say, like, I am going into all of those, the Facebook sort of groups. That was a big leap for me. Mm-hmm. I think that when you're talking about how like people are, it's like being in a room with people, but it's just on the internet and you're having the same kind of conversations. That's really important. But I was finding that in a room, as much as I can talk and I seem really open, I can be extraordinarily shy and not talk to people at all. So that was really helpful. So like once I started to connect into those Facebook groups and sort of commenting and, learning how to comment, that I think that translated into even my own Facebook page and the way that I was posting. That's where it happened. Like the one that was on the Messenger, he was
somebody you already knew, right?
I knew him in high school.
It's been a while.
We knew because everybody knew each other, on some level, right?
You knew of each other. That's how they say it, right? You knew of each other, but you weren't like friends.
If I saw him on the street, I wouldn't know who he was, to be honest. Because I had to look him up. I had to look at pictures of him. Like, oh, okay. I know we changed. But anyway,
so he somehow like engaged with you on your profile, and then you just used some of the communication techniques to chat with him in Messenger and make the sale.
Yeah, I was very careful about just the way that I engaged with him, in a sense that I talked to him a little bit about where he is, what's he up to, how's it going, like this kind of small talk, really nice, because we were both interested. Like he was interested in me as well, right? Mm-hmm. And then he said something about the painting, and he said, I can't remember. I mean, I could eventually share my screen with
the specifics at all, but yeah, basically it sounds like not only have like I correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the sales you've made have been from people that kind of know you from your local area or offline, but some of them have been coming in through these online techniques too, right?
Yeah, like right now it's about half and half, because a couple of the sales were through my gallery on the weekend. This one was through the gallery, and the other one was through me on the weekend. It was a triptych. So that was actually in the sale that I did on the winter. Remember I was telling you the platform that that was a triptych that was there. So this woman actually contacted me because there were some mutual friends that were up around here, and she said she's been looking at those pieces since the winter and had her eyes off them.
That's and awesome. So what else? What other sort of wins or like takeaways have you had so far?
The other ones are, let's just say like the ones that in my own doing, like just like the first one, just when I contacted you, and I think probably, or like when you came up on YouTube, I sold a piece of work through. Again, it was like a friend of a friend had recommended me as a painter. That was really a huge step. I haven't heard that before, where, I would like more of that, a referral, as they say. And I didn't know how she knew me because it came out of the blue. And sometimes I think, oh, it was an email. And I was like, oh, I don't know who this is. So I had to have that back and forth. And then she kind of told me who she was and then told me this piece. And it's a really unusual piece. It's kind of like, it's just kind of abstract. It's odd. It's of the island. And she's like, I love that. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, wrote it back and I told her like what the price was. And she was like, fine. And then I had to look her up on the internet because I was like, I want to know what she does, and then then we had a phone call.
That's another takeaway there too. It's like, so now you're more interested in the collectors and the clients you're working with and like their background and who they are. It sounds like.
Totally. Like she develops like public spaces in urban centers where people can interact better with their environments, if that makes sense. Yeah. So she somehow resonated with my stuff, and it was great.
You want to share about the thing with the cloud painting some? Yeah, you got to share that.
So one of my closest friends' mom was living in Europe for many years, and so she had just returned. She came back to Canada so she could see her granddaughter. And she said, I've joined the Society of Cloud Appreciation. Cloud Appreciation. I was like, what? And she's been looking at a lot of my paintings for the last couple of years. I've been doing a lot of sky work and clouds. And so she said, like if I send them your painting, would you agree to put them online if they agree? And I said, for sure. So I sent her a bunch of JPEGs, and so they just wrote me back recently with these official letters of like releasing this piece, and so I agreed to it. And then they said, okay, well, we have to crop out like a square of it, and I said that's fine because you're just asking me what's okay. And then it was all good. And then afterwards, we were saying like, well, we should have like a Facebook link to this, right? So I did write her back, and she said no. So I don't know, but I mean, they're gonna know who I am, right?
Well, we can talk about that more offline and talk about that. But I just thought that was kind of a little cute story. It's not a core win. It's not like making a sale, but it's kind of cute. It's a cute little story.
50,000 followers or something. So if there's a connection, see, that's my thing. It is cute. Like if someone emails me and say, oh, I just love that little thing. That's enough now. Before I would be like, oh, I wonder if that's a sale. But now just someone being interested in it makes me interested in them. And that's
cool.
That's the biggest change.
That's awesome. So what do you think, like what areas of your life and like the business side of your art practice, what areas of those have improved in your eyes?
It's 90% my communication skills. My structuring my life is a little bit more difficult just because I'm still doing little workshops, still doing those things. So it's my day-to-day can be like really crazy.
We're working on that.
Which is a drag. I mean, I love it, but it's not good for my, I'm not grounded, and that doesn't help my focus. Yeah.
We'll keep working on that. We'll don't worry. What else though? What else
am I taking?
Yeah. What areas of your life have improved?
Well, I mean, financially, it just means that I have this, I can make decisions that I would have to think twice about. Like my car, like I'm really dependent on a vehicle. Here we have to drive I have to drive 40, 50 minutes on a, 80-kilometer-an-hour highway in the middle of the bush, basically, to get to see my friends. So, I mean, everywhere you go, it's like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in the car.
It's a decision,
Yeah, it's huge. And I want that thing functioning, right? Yep. I want my people in good stead, and it's making me, and in fact, what it's doing right now is I don't own the land that I'm on, but I'm going to be able to purchase my own land and build my own studio. That's my goal.
That's exciting. That's awesome.
With brand new roof and window, like all that. I've always, like I'm in a little house, and I work in this back, which could be the master bedroom of the house. So that's my studio, or I work outside. Other than that, I'm good because I've been doing this for so long now. I can work anywhere, but I want a studio proper. Yeah.
Good for you. No, I'd love to make that happen or help you make that happen. That would be awesome. That's awesome. So do you feel like you've gotten a return on your investment so far, just at a high level?
Harry, like without a doubt, like just with anybody that ever chooses to work with you, I think that it really, you try to tell us, you say, it's a sure thing. Look at it as an investment. And I believed you, and it worked. And I think believing and having faith in people that are really coming from a really true place, we can discern that, and then we have to do the work. And I know that that's where it comes from. And I was willing to do that. I'm willing to do the work.
I love it. No, that's so powerful the way you said it. It's like you have to have like courage and faith in yourself, and you have to like stay positive, and then you have to do the work as well. And if like you have those two things, like it's gonna work. Because that's the recipe. It's
a recipe. And doing the work, for me, what I've learned a lot mostly about is that how I work with this type of information. Because, I've been to university, and I didn't love it. But I did, if I did the work, I did well. If I didn't do the work, I didn't do so well. So I'm that guy. A lot of us are, right? There's very few of us that will just do extraordinarily well without doing some kind of work. It's a myth. It must be a myth. Yep. So and And if we're dedicated to what we do in terms of our art practices or whatever it is that we want to, our entrepreneurial service or whatever, then we're going to want to do the work, right?
Yeah, you can get it done. It's like you're like, I know that on the other side of this thing that's uncomfortable, this thing I've never done before, this thing that makes me a little nervous, it's like there's a great sunny valley, you know, with more collectors that I'm working with on the other side. So you just gotta kind of keep putting one foot in front of the other, make your way there, you know?
I still see it as a kind of a darkness, but it's definitely there. Like
yeah. I mean, you're just getting started. You're right. Like you haven't arrived yet in my mind either. There's so much more for us to do. So, but maybe the clouds are breaking and you're seeing some sun peek through.
Well, you know, take friends out for dinner and do things and, you know, purchase gifts for people and, you know, upgrade things in my life without really thinking twice about it. I'm really grateful.
It feels
and
nice.
It feels great. Yeah. More secure, you know, all those things that money can help with. I mean, it's, and also I'm also learning how to let go of like a lot of like that lack mentality, as they call it. That is
mindset.
Scarcity mindset. It's not that I was not conscious of it, but I've worked with a lot of people that are fully marginalized. And so I kind of went down into that way as well. Maybe like, you know, trying to be as empathetic as like, but then it can take you there too, right? So that's part of my history, and I don't want to be there. And you don't have to be in that mindset, and you can help other people as well.
You can still empathize. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Wow, that's really powerful. So thinking back to like when you and I first connected and spoke, why did you decide to do business with me?
Well, I think that you had practical answers to my questions about like just kind of you knew that there was something on the other side of the internet and Facebook, and you were actually really simplified things as well, because you kept saying you repeatedly use Facebook, you repeatedly use maybe Instagram, you repeatedly tell people to stop kind of going out to Pluto or whatever and trying too many things. Even websites, you were saying it's not important in order to sell. So like all those little flags to me were like, all right, you're seeing something that's very simple and that you know you can help us with, that we may not see. And that's the most important thing about learning, is that I do not see that. I could not see it. I could not find it. I think I'm pretty smart and committed. And so, like I said, I was getting here and there, like there and there with my sales, but not enough. So it's like I want to pick it up. And that's why I wanted to work with you, because you can see those things. You've seen it in your practice too, right?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So I like, you know, you can tell like when I have a lot of conviction on something and like can call out, because it's like, yeah, I was there 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I've done all the things, all the sand traps that you guys fall into trying to sell online. It's like, you know.
Never a golf fan. I just like, I'm not going out golfing. No.
Remembering back to our conversation, like, I mean, I don't know if you remember this, but you were really nervous. Like, I think I took a lot of coaxing for you to get comfortable and say yes on the call. Do you remember like what kicked you over the fence, so to speak?
Yeah, I was definitely not going to do it. Like, I mean, in the sense that I am so suspicious of what happens on the internet that it was like to a fault, right? But the way you kept talking, and I was just like, no, this guy's genuine, and he knows what he's talking about, and and I was nervous, and I think that for me the investment was a lot, and I mean I could have used it for so many different things, but then when you said there was something you said about investment, and it was like, think of it not just
about a laptop, didn't we? Did we talk about a laptop and you had just bought a new computer or something?
Maybe. What happened? What were we talking about?
You tell me if I'm off base, but I feel like I was like, you know, I said something like, we have this tendency of investing in all these other things that don't help us grow our art practice or make our lives better, like a new laptop. And then you started laughing about how maybe a family member bought you a new laptop recently or something like that. Does that ring any bells?
Yeah. My mom bought me a laptop. And I think that was a bit of a life changer, because I have a Mac desktop, but it's old, you know, and I just needed a new one. But but it was more about like this sort of looking down the road and investing in the self. That's what put me over the edge with you. I was like, there's something in me that was not willing to invest in myself. That's what made me nervous. Why couldn't I get around that? Why couldn't I see that investment in time was going to be
that would come back to you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, we need to learn practical skills to help us in this, in the financial world, you know?
Yeah.
It's have to, or else, like, I might as well just go get a job at, the local, donut shop. Not that I'm going to do that. That was always my, I was like,
maybe I should just go to the donut shop.
Oh yeah.
Make a baker's dozen of glazed.
Crullers or crullers, as they say.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you decided to join, because it's like, I'll tell you from my end, like, I can't ever tell like exactly who's going to say yes, right? But a lot of times I have such conviction, like I can see ahead of you. I'm like, I know this person can do it if they just do the work, and so that's why I'm so confident on the calls. And it's like, I just feel almost like if someone doesn't move forward, it's like I failed them because I didn't adequately communicate and convey to them that they can do it, And so it was just awesome to see you sign up.
Yeah, like that's something that people have been, like, someone like you that does that for me, I'm just so grateful, like, because I can't see it and you could, and I couldn't see. Maybe that's the other thing too, like, in going forward in the future with other people, like, you can actually, you can't tell people what you can see in the future. I mean, that's just sort of,
it's hard. It's really hard to do.
Yeah. But there are, there's it's hard to do because each person will have a different, sort of, what's the word, like slope to walk
learning
up.
Curve. Yeah, their learning curve, where their mindset is at, how healthy that is. Like, there's all these factors that affect someone's pace to be successful. But like, again, I firmly believe if they just stay positive, they keep putting one foot in front of the other, they do the work, whether it'll be 1 month for them, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. I mean, I was a slow developer when I learned sales. It took me like probably 9 months, 12 months to really hit my stride. And even that, I'm still learning today. So that's why I believe, like, that's why I'm so optimistic that people can do it, because I know it took me a long time, if that makes sense.
It does. And I think that's the worry. There's a little last bit of worry that's stuck in me, which is it's going well. I want to stay steady, a steady pace, slow and steady wins the race kind of thing. I don't know if that's a thing, but I want, because I don't want to do this boom and bust thing anymore. I want that, like, I want the steadiness. That's what is really my goal as well.
Well, hey, we're going to keep working on it. So, like, don't psych yourself out. Like, we'll keep going. And that's ahead of you. That's the next milestone, is let's just make this very consistent for you. So, let me ask you this though, like, I may be kind of silly or obvious, but like, would you recommend others work with me?
Oh, no, it's not silly at all. It's I would. I mean, I don't know how would you ask me to do that? Like, would you just, if anybody just asks? Like,
no, just in general, like hypothetically, would you recommend people that are listening to this, other artists that are listening to the interview, would you recommend that they work with us?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Artists particularly, like, it's just such an unusual, like, niche that you cover. Like, we just don't have these practical skills. I mean, we like you said, you see, we'll go back to the studio, we'll produce 1 million paintings, but to actually show them in a public sphere and to connect to them on a level where this is like a really good investment for someone else to make. That's the difference. Yeah. And for sure, if they see it as a serious call and to them, to make money, not to bring back the Vincent van Gogh quote, but it's like, the guy was a genius or whatever that is, but he sold like one painting in his life or something like that.
Right. And like, his paintings are one of the most valuable paintings, right, today.
Yeah. And you can see them in Amsterdam. They have a museum after him. But I'm not saying that we all, that's the lack mentality or the scarcity mentality, is that there's a lot of sort of mythologizing around that. But, we need to, as living artists, we need to be able to support ourselves. And I think that, don't put yourself, it's an old myth where it's like, oh, well, if you're going to be a real true artist, you're going to wind up like him. Well, I don't know. I think it's better to have a little money in your pocket, you know? Like, I've been doing this long enough now. I'm just like, no, that's not what I want. And it
Yeah.
doesn't, no, that's
And,
it. Yes.
and on the opposite side, it doesn't mean you have to like, go be super commercial and try to make, $10 million a year, sell your pieces for 50 million. Like there's this happy medium where it's like you can make a great living and then choose to grow in that direction and make more sales and be wildly successful if you want to. But yeah, I don't think you're not like selling your soul or compromising your artistic integrity by figuring out how to make a living from your artwork. That's just crazy talk.
It's just crazy talk. And that's another reason why I said yes to you, because I felt like you have that level-headedness about the way you talk about it. So when we're learning that I don't want that crazy talk to like be
Loud in your head. Yeah.
No, it's already like, it's kind of, some of this stuff is really ego driven too. So like, it's like, oh yeah, like look at this piece or whatever. And that's cool. But like, everybody's different in on that level as well. And we're also human. So like, nothing's perfect. So like we're trying to do, it's like you might buy IKEA furniture and you know what you're getting because whatever. I always use IKEA furniture. Have you ever seen The Fight Club?
No, but hey, let me ask you another question though. Like, so kind of on this topic, like what sort of artists do you think we're especially a good fit for?
Well, I think you're a good fit for anybody that really would like to, that sees that they can produce lots of work. Let's put it that way, that they have the discipline to be in their studio or whether it's sculpture or anything that they do or painting or anything, that they want to go into a new era of sales. I mean, it really is that to me. And I really noticed the sea change in the last 5 years in the internet. So if you need to learn skills that are going to get you into markets they're very, I think they're kind of buried on some level.
Yep.
They're alternative to the old world art markets, art fairs, gallery shows, and they're legitimate. That's the difference. You see, at first people are like, oh, they're just selling all this crap online, stuff, work, I don't know, whatever. But it's legitimate. It's legitimate, and I feel it in my heart. I don't think I'm just, been, brainwashed. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, totally. And I bet like there's actually a lot of overlap. It's just that you're connecting with some of these people online or just in different ways, in ways that weren't conventional to the art world in the past, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And they have, and they are gatekeepers. So, we know we need to use that word, but they have been gatekeepers to me. I know that. They know that. I know it in my own practice. In Canada is a small population compared to the US. Within my peer groups, I can tell, like, through not getting some museum shows and stuff, there's just a certain type of gatekeeper. And I'm like, I don't want that to ever stop me from creating my work.
There's what I call, like, industries that have gatekeeping in them? The type of marketing people practice with that? I call it hope marketing, because you just hope that someone, like, blesses you and takes care of you. But, like, it's not predictable. It's really difficult,
Yeah, I think that's how I've been for, before. I think a lot of it is that you just, you just kind of throw things into the mash, and like they'll say things. I'll hear things like, "Well, that gallerist was in a bad mood that day, so they just didn't want you to be in."
Right. They didn't have breakfast that morning.
Right.
Their dog, went to the bathroom in the house, and so they were upset. It's like any industry where it's like someone's mood influences your whole career. It's like that's not predictable. That's not where you want to like rest build your foundation. That's shaky ground to build a foundation on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I wonder. This is a question to you, like. Do you see that in the art world as it being very dodgy, like in the terms of like, is it more like that or not like that? Like, has it in the past? Is it changing? Like, what's happening?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can't get too much into it, but what I would say is, like, from my vantage point, like, I'm not of the art world. Like, I don't really know galleries at all. I don't know anybody in museums. And so I just don't even worry about it. Like, it's, I'm so focused on you guys and our methods and how you're having success. So it just doesn't bother me. I wish them well. I wish them success. I don't want to denigrate them at all. Like, and I think there's going to always be a role for those institutions. But it's not really a focus of mine to get kind of very literate in that at this stage of my business, if that makes sense.
I think it's really wise to do that, to keep it separate. And that's another reason why I did join you as well, just so you know why I signed on to it, because I actually did for a very short time. I don't know if I paid for it, but there's a guy that I did it with a couple years ago he was kind of hooked into like museums and stuff like that. But I just found...
Are there people that like say like, hey, I can get you into museums, just pay me, and they'll introduce you to the right people, something like that? It's
kind of like, maybe that's what he didn't say it straight up.
It's not exactly spoken in that direct terms, but it's kind of what they're trying to do. Interesting. Okay. Huh.
Not good.
Well, no worries. No worries. Well, let me ask you this. Like, why should an artist who's listening take action right now?
Right now?
Yeah.
Because I think within the first, if they take action, if they invest in this program, then what they're going to find is if they start to work within, I would say 2 weeks, within a week, 2 weeks of really focusing on all the videos and all the things that the Flywheel Lab has, and getting accountability buddies and talking online, that even though it may seem like really unusual and strange, it just starts to work, and they start to see themselves differently. And I think that would be a really good, really, really important place to start, so they can both do their art practice and make a living from it. I mean, I think that's really what we're talking about, is making a predictable living.
Yeah, not just a living, like a great living, right?
Yeah, that's my goal. I mean, I want it to be a good living.
Yep. Well, that's so great. Lauren, this has been so much fun, like talking to you and learning about your story, and you sharing your wins. I really appreciate it. So, like, as we wrap up here, like, what's your number one piece of advice for other artists who are listening in?
Yeah, nobody has ever asked me that question before.
First time for everything.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What would I say? For artists first time listening in, I would just suggest that taking, you can call it taking a risk, but what I would suggest is that you really are investing in yourself and in the future. It's not just like, it might seem like a momentary risk just to, it's like going to any kind of college or school. Like, you don't know if you're going to be a doctor in 5 years. You don't know, you might have I don't know, children or something, and it gets in the way. So like with this case scenario, like you've got to take the chance and then commit yourself to it, and then it will definitely work for you. Definitely, without a doubt.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. This has been great. And let's do another one of these in a month or two when you have some more wins.
Okay. That sounds good.
All right. Bye.
Bye, Harry. Thank you.